Hello, hello. Welcome all to you who are early. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining early. We are seeing the numbers start to tick up on attendees. Note, as we go, we are actually going to kick off with a poll. So I'll be posting that here in the minutes as we're waiting for people to join. Hello, hello. Seeing more people don't join. Alrighty, as more people trickle in, I just posted a poll that is asking you two questions. So the first one is just a welcome, where are you calling in from? And we want to know a little bit about you. You can also post in the Q&A, but we figure the chat poll is a little bit easier. And then the second question is, what is the biggest challenge? So it should be the question that you see on the screen or on your screen now, and it's relevant to today's topic. So what is the biggest challenge that you see with business texting? Is it knowing where to start? Is it executive buy-in? Is it that maybe just you don't know how the use case actually works? Maybe it's too costly, or you just don't think it works, right? So that's what we're looking for. We're going to give a couple more minutes for more people to join. We're seeing the numbers increase. For those that just joined, just know that there is a poll out there asking you just where you're calling in from, and also what the biggest challenge with business texting is. Cool, cool. And we'll start in about 60 seconds. Awesome. Starting to see the numbers go up, which is good. Also, this is pretty fun. We're seeing that majority are right now Eastern US and West Coast, but we have people calling in from Latin America. We have people from Europe. We have people from the Midwest. Awesome. Nobody from Australia or Asia yet. Maybe that'll change. All right, so we are now at 60 seconds, and we are so excited to kick today's webinar with Aloware off. So we've got a packed schedule in these 60 minutes for you. We've got two great speakers, well, one subpar and the other very great. So the first is myself, the subpar. and I'm the director of product here at Aloware. I'm so excited that you chose the afternoon or evening or morning to spend with us, and hopefully you'll learn something. We are joined today by our founder and CEO, Anush, who's going to talk to you guys about how to text and really how it's going to work. So that should be fun. So I'm just going to make sure that we can get the video of Anush and we'll jump in.
Hey, everybody. Oh, much better. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. So first, welcome to Aloware's first webinar. This is the first time we're doing this. So if we repeat ourselves or we go off script or whatever, just don't mind us. We attended HubSpot Inbound, which is where we met most of you guys. And that conference and the exhibit that followed was very eye-opening for me personally. Learned a lot of things, met a lot of interesting people. So in this webinar today, we do have a diverse set of attendees and participants. We have people who are from a B2C background, and we have people who are from a B2B background. We have agencies who are helping their customers. We have some of our affiliate/partner agencies within this webinar. Throughout this webinar, I'm going to be talking a lot about texting and why texting is important. One of the things that I realized before starting was, what term should I use to talk about the recipient of our messages? So I'm going to be using consumer, prospect, customer, clients, all these things kind of interchangeably. I know that these things might have different meanings depending on the context, like if you're B2B or B2C, but I'm just going to use these terms in a very generic term. So to kick off today's webinar, and by the way, we've tried to design an incredibly interactive webinar so you guys don't get bored by my monotone voice. Let's go to the next slide. So we're going to start with why texting is a great channel next to calls, or why texting might be even better than calling, right? So I'm going to be talking about the why, and then Nathan is going to take over and talk about the how. So I took this screenshot of my cell phone this morning as we were preparing for the webinar, right? And I've had this, like whenever I go to talk about text, business to consumer text messaging, I always start like this, that you as a consumer, at the end of the day, we're all consumers of different businesses and different services. At the end of the day, if you wake up to this screen on your cell phone, right, with 66 voicemails, thousands of unread emails, and 2 text messages, which one are you going to read first? So I'm pretty sure my answer is for sure to text, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys would also agree with me that text messages get open first. If this is the first time in the morning that you're looking at your phone, I assume that's the first screen that you're going to go to. So in this webinar, we're going to see how we can like capitalize on this. So we dug up some data from one of our research partners called Data AI, right? And first of all, everybody is glued to their phone. Like as a proud millennial myself, I'm constantly glued to this guy right here. I spend 4 or 5 hours on my phone for business, for personal, right? Texting has 98% open rates compared to email. So email has been with us for 20 to 30 years. And now everybody is emailing. Everybody sends automated email, transactional email, reminder emails. Some go to spam, some go to the bottom of the inbox, some get lost in threads. SMS doesn't fall within that. SMS and texting gets open 98% of the time, right? I'm pretty sure if we survey the people who are currently sitting on this call and ask them to all look at their phones, it would be almost impossible to find someone who has more unopened text than, let's say, unread emails. And that's the power that texting gives to us to put our message first, right? Also, not only it has that 98% open rate, which is amazing, most text messages are read within 3 minutes, right? whereas a majority of 80% are read within 30 seconds. Test messages come as previews, come as notifications to our phones. And I, for one, even though I might be working, I would take a glance at my phone when it beeps. And I would at the very least read the beginning of a text message, right? And if it's interesting, I'll just stop what I'm doing, read the text message, and get back to my work, right? Let's go to the next slide. So apart from that speed factor that I just talked about, that SMS and texting is essentially the fastest and is the fastest way to like get information from your business, right, or your partner businesses to a consumer specifically, where it be in B2C or B2B, like you want to speak with a decision maker, you want to like remind the consumer that their appointment is approaching. SMS has another factor going for it that cold calls per se don't have, and that is SMS has context. So I want to talk about contextual SMS with this example that is, again, from my phone on the left. And we took Tesla as an example. Tesla runs their entire support operation over text messaging. And what they have figured is that that level of texting provides more context. So if you look on the text message that I received on the left, it first identifies who you are. It's Elon Musk from Tesla, right? It identifies what you want to talk about. You want to talk about the car delivery for this prospect. And then it does identify a CTA, call to action. Can you talk, right? Which means that the person who's receiving this message is either going to say yes, which you call them and they're for sure going to pick up because now you have built that suspense, you have built that anticipation, or even better, they would just call you. So your outbound text would drive an inbound engagement back to your internal support box, right? The text message that we have is very short. It's a total of 20 words, 3 lines, right? Is read or is at the very least is skimmed in 3 seconds, right? And just repeating myself, the consumer knows 3 key things: who you are, what you offer, and the next action item, right? So let's go to the next slide. And this is something at this point, some might argue, and again, I want to operate in both a B2B and a B2C sense. Some might argue that, oh, but when we do cold calls, if the person doesn't pick up, which 7 out of 10 don't pick up, we leave a voicemail message identifying who we are, identifying what we offer. So next time that we call, the person is much more likely to pick up, right? And I want to disagree with them. And I'm going to take myself as a prime example of why. Again, you have another screenshot of my own personal cell phone. I don't read my voicemails. I don't listen to my voicemails. I don't read my voicemails. General rule of thumb, if you need something from me and if your need is urgent, send me a text message. So moving forward, and again, this is not to bash on calling. Aloware provides calling and texting at the same time. And I would say half of our volume still remains calling. I want to also point out that what the most difficult part of opening up creating any conversation is just to open up the engagement, right? Currently, there are a couple of ways that we're doing this. Currently, there is cold calling, right? There is also follow-up calling. You get a lead from your marketing, you get a lead from Facebook, right? And you call them the next day, right? But the majority of conversation openers are currently cold calls or essentially lukewarm calls that you made a connection on LinkedIn. Then on just a random number starts popping up in your phone. And then, oh, you realize that, oh, this is Nathan from LinkedIn, right? They have to identify themselves. They have to remind you what you talked about. They have to provide context. A lot of people today, again, I'm going to take myself as an example, don't want to pick up calls from unknown numbers. You know, like calls are super interruptive, right? So I'm doing something, I'm working on an Excel file or whatever, and then my phone rings, which is most of the time silent, but if it rings, I'm not going to stop what I'm doing and see a number from out of state that is calling me, like just not going to pick it up. With all this like new spamming and robot dialing that is going on in the country, the likelihood of me answering a cold call is quite slim, right? And texting fixes this because when you text, again, our three core principles, you identify who you are, you say what you want, and then you provide the next action item, whether it's you calling them calling you. That makes it significantly more likely for those people to answer your call. One other thing that we've recently realized, and this applies to businesses and organizations that rely on inside sales, for your consumers to reach out to you, right, to complete a transaction over the phone. There is a new trend emerging, and that is where you put your phone number out there, be it an 800 toll-free number, be it a regular local phone number. People are starting to expect to text you, right? So you have let's say that a doctor office has their phone number on Yelp, and I want to like figure out if they accept my Blue Cross insurance, right? For one, I would very much prefer to copy paste that number into my texting app and send a text and say, hey, do you provide this? Whether to call them, and half the time they don't pick up, and then it goes to voicemail, and I have to call back to follow up, right? People are expecting to text businesses a lot more compared with, let's say, 5 to 10 years ago, where it was just not a thing. And then the reverse mentality also applies. If you're starting to text people, right? If your business is already texting people, let's say for notifications, people will want to text you back. When we onboard customers into our software, Aloware, one of the things that we tell them from day one is that the moment that you realize, the moment that customers realize that you're text enabled, they would be texting you back. That conversation moves from the calling and the voice channel into a texting channel, specifically if it's for a small thing, if it's for like changing a transaction, like fixing, I don't know, an appointment, changing an appointment, or anything of that nature. Lastly, we talked about how the consumer feels. Now I want to like spend some time talking about how the business feels by bringing texting into their day-to-day, right? Here we have an example of a dealership, right? Your CRM, HubSpot, is full of data. That's what we learned in Boston. All the data that you need to make decisions or to figure out your outreach is there. All you need is a tool that can actually carry that outreach on the proper channels. And that proper channel today is SMS, right? Here we do have an example of an automated text message, which is incredibly personalized to both agent and the prospect. Reynaldo and Amon, right? Those tokens from HubSpot, talking about a Honda CRV, that information is also coming from HubSpot, and then the next action item, right? This is an incredible utility when you marry texting into your current workflows and sequences, and starting with the basic things for order updates, for appointment reminders, for ticket resolutions, right? Nobody wants to spend 2-3 minutes to make an outbound call to let a consumer know that their appointment has changed, right? And that's where the CRM and the automation come in. And we provide the texting avenue to the CRM. Let's move forward. For those guys who are bored, at almost the end of my monotone. Aloware plus HubSpot drives a lot of efficiency and time saving. This is something that we've seen time and time again with our other clients. A lot of work can be templated for your agents. You guys are already using this by using email templates and playbooks and all of these good stuff. All your transactional messaging, appointment reminders, receipts, and this and that, you don't need a 2-minute call. And it's not really always 2 minutes. You call and the person doesn't pick up, you have to call again, you have to make sure the message is sent. It's never 2 minutes, it's more like 5 to 10 minutes. Whereas it takes 3 seconds to type a message that, hey, your appointment is changed to 2 p.m. tomorrow, and the person can confirm, right? And lastly, and this is something that Nathan would be talking about a lot in the rest of this presentation, there is a high degree of automation with workflows and sequences. You already do it with email. You might do it with webinars, just like we did with this one. Now we're adding the texting channel to the same sequences and workflows, so you can get the message out, so you can spread the word, right? So in short, just to summarize, This is my final slide, I promise. Just to summarize what is going on with business texting today, is that business texting is perfect for speed, read very quickly within 3 minutes, 98% open rate, is amazing for context. We put who we are, what we want, and next CTA into a total of 20 words, right? Is amazing for connection rates. People are kind of hardwired to, at the very least, read and engage with their text messages, and is amazing for efficiency. Sending text first can be automated a lot, and then can be templated a lot. So it would be a perfect opportunity for your business, for your agency, to free up time on your agents so they can just perform better and be more efficient. So with that, and again, like my part was to talk about the why, right? And then I'm going to give it back to Nathan to talk about the how. Nathan, please.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Anush. And I just think it's really insightful to understand, even if as a business, I might not think that texting is an option for me, it's still possible and within the realm of helpful for me to actually do. So, you know, as we continue on, and this is where we're taking kind of a brief pause in the programming, please submit your questions. So as I said before, you know, we scheduled an hour for this, but we don't have a full hour of content. That was very much intentional. So we definitely want to hear your questions. We want to respond to them as much as that makes sense, and really be available for you guys in how we do this. So now we'll jump into the how. So Anush talked previously about the why. Why is business texting? Why is SMS so important? What I'm going to talk about is the how. So how does this actually look in HubSpot? I'm going to do a couple live demos, and I'll also be walking you through the specifics of how we think you can build your own campaign, how we've seen our customers build our own campaigns with us. So let's jump in. The first thing I want to talk about is the use cases that we've seen from our clients. So we can hear it from the horse's mouth, our customers directly. We have an awesome customer in Job Nimbus. Job Nimbus is a software vendor for contractors all across the country. What they talk about when using Aloware with HubSpot is this middle quote. And it's a long quote, so I won't read the whole thing, but I will read this middle section, which says, Job Nimbus representatives work directly off of contact records in our HubSpot instance, where they're able to call and text prospects via Aloware seamlessly. Now, what I really want to draw out from that quote is two things. The first, he says, Josh really likes that they can work off of a direct contact record in HubSpot. It's direct in HubSpot. That's a theme throughout this entire how, that for the manager, the marketing manager, the sales manager, we really want to encourage behavior where you never leave Aloware instance specifically. The second thing I'll call out is that he says call and text. So for the best success, turning texts and calls into engagements directly, we really want to make sure that we have both of those omni-channel calling and texting integrated. So I do want to call out just briefly, we are going to have a live demo. I know I said that before, but we're going to see how this calling and texting really happens in HubSpot. And if you just, you know, hold on a little bit longer, I'll show you that. The next thing I want to talk about is actually a personal anecdote. So Anush mentioned that the first thing that I look at my phone that you, or at least I probably check, is texting. I think, and I would guess everybody on this call, that's probably true. Well, let me show you how that was true in my own life. Last night, as we were obviously planning for this yesterday and last week, and then just last night, I celebrated a birthday with one of my friends at Topgolf. I love to golf. My friends and I golf as much as we can. If you're based in the US, maybe you've been to one of these Topgolfs before. They're pretty great. Well, 15 minutes before our session, we had a bay reserved for us, and they sent me a text because I booked the reserve that said, hey, your bay will be ready at your reserved time. Please text okay to confirm that you'll receive this, right? Not that long of a text, but, you know, long-ish. I said, okay, that's all it was required. And they said, sweet, we'll send your top bay golf assignment shortly. text stop to opt out. I was actually getting a burger on the way to the session. And then my friends were arriving before me and they're like, oh, where do I go? And I said, well, just I'll text you as soon as it is. Oh, it's bays 117 and 118. I didn't even have to be there. It was outstanding. Okay. The point is not just how you can use texting for that kind of appointment rescheduling, but then look at this second message. This was from a separate number that I imagine at Topgolf is actually created into some marketing SMS campaign that then they said, look, reply yes to confirm subscription to Topgolf alerts. Now, normally I would never say yes to anything like this. Like, why would I? I don't really care about text message alerts. But this was only minutes after I had already received a very positive experience from Topgolf. So I think, well, if I have this message confirming my appointment and my schedule, why wouldn't I be interested in their alerts, right? That's a brand that I like. It's an engagement, right? And so this is the kind of behavior that we're really trying to create as a business. And no matter what your use case is, you have these ideas. You have these places where you can have a low effort touch point in order to increase high engagement and creating a face with your brand so that it's an actual relationship that can build into something like a deal, right? So that's what we're trying to go for when we think about customization of and personalization of SMS. One slide that I have, and now here's how it works, and I promise I'm getting to this live demo. There's a lot of questions we often get within the customer onboarding process when customers start with us. So the first thing is, how is Aloware integrated with HubSpot? Well, first and foremost, it's a non-technical setup that only takes minutes to actually do. This is really important because you don't need to hire a developer. You don't need to spend 3 weeks. You don't have to spend managed services or professional services of 20% and thousands of dollars. It's 3 or 4 clicks, and it's not even minutes. It's honestly like seconds. So I'll show you guys a little bit of what that is, but it's pretty sweet. The second question we get a lot is, what kind of context syncing do you have? For us, it's actually real time. What that means is every time a property changes from one system to another, it's immediately sending and talking to the other. So HubSpot changes the state or the phone number. Aloware is immediately going to pull that information in because it's being sent. And you'll be able to see that live syncing in action. The third thing is the customization of events for the two-way integration. By default, Aloware does two-way syncing, meaning anything that changes in HubSpot is going to be reflected in Aloware. But we also have a lot of cases where we want HubSpot to be the primary source of truth. And so if someone accidentally changes something in Aloware, we're not going to want to change that to reflect and change that source of truth of HubSpot. So we also have that ability to customize it, and it's non-technical and easy to do. Finally, we have this workflows that Anush previously talked about. I'm actually going to show you guys a live example of how we can automatically text within a workflow. And it's pretty cool because you'll get to see it in action to know how this can be something you can use. So there's automatic texting within HubSpot workflows. So without ever leaving HubSpot, let's say that I'm a marketing manager. So I'm going to put on my marketing manager hat, and I'm going to text or want to text a contact and even set up a HubSpot workflow with Aloware inside of HubSpot. So let's get into this live demo and let's do it. Where we're going to start is the integration connection in Aloware settings. So if you're not familiar at all, this is our Aloware app. This is our web app. Here you have a whole list of options on the left, including a dashboard, a live wall board, and even more. But where I'm pre-selected and where I really want to focus the time on here is the HubSpot integration. So we have all of our listed all of our listed integrations here. We have our APIs, but then within the first CRM and help desk software option, we have HubSpot, right? So I can click on the settings, and now I can see all of the options that are available to me within this live HubSpot integration. Now, this is our live production site within Aloware. We actually use this one, so I'm not going to turn it off. But in order to just check the connection to see, okay, is everything working? It's just one click, right? My HubSpot connection is working. If this was my first time setting it up, and obviously we hope that many of you on this call will go through either a free trial or just a setup, that you can actually do this. it's about 4 clicks. So you enable, then you're redirected to a page that says, are you allowed to access the data that is in HubSpot? You'll say yes. You go through a couple more options, and then you're good. It's enabled. It's ready to go. From here, we have the synchronization that we talked about. So this is the contacts. We have the users that are available. We have the lead statuses, which are in HubSpot, right? That we want to pull in and do synchronous examples, and so much more. We have custom mapping, we have custom fields, we have the filtering for the two-way sync that I talked about. And this is obviously a lot of information. So I'm gonna pause here and just say the integration of HubSpot with Aloware is so simple. And we really want you to put us to the test on this and tell us if you have any issues. But we've had a lot of good feedback for this, and so we'd love to hear yours as well. Now, before I go on to the next step of the live demo, which is going to be HubSpot, I just want to take a quick pause. We've thrown a lot of content at you. We still have some ways to go, but if you have questions, please post in the Q&A. I actually see quite a few already, so we'll make sure to leave space for those. But please continue to ask questions in the chat so that we have those to ask at the end of the call. Great. So where we were and where we left off was our HubSpot integration. Specifically now, what we want to do is we want to look at what the Aloware data looks like inside of HubSpot. So here I am, and I have a John Smith as a contact. And in this contract record, you'll notice a few things. So in your normal activity, you have the actions that exist for, obviously, that contact. But notice that I have a call here, right? And this call was actually made with Aloware. We were practicing earlier today, and this is where I can see it. But what I really want to spend time on, what we've been talking about, is texting, right? Well, if I go to the right side and I can see the Aloware widget, I can click on this SMS messenger. If you're familiar at all with other tools and plugins from HubSpot, this is no different from that. And this is really neat because this is the power of HubSpot and the power of Aloware together. And you're never having to teach anyone a new tool. I know I've said that like 10 times, but I really want to express that that's a huge game changer for teams that already know HubSpot. Now they can text, they can call, they can do all of these activities. So let's just do this as an example. So it's funny, I actually signed up, which is why I have this text message that I got, but I'll text and I'll say, hi, John, are you free to chat? Right? Now this is hooked up with my personal phone number. And now I get a message that says, hi, John, can you see it? Are you free to chat? It's too bright. But I got a text message, and I'll respond back and say, yes, I am. Let's call. Now, I know Anush talked a ton about how, we don't want to, we don't want to necessarily call, right? It's not the first option. However, I'll push back on that a little bit, which is calling can still be really important. And in certain circumstances, it can even be the most appropriate for us to do, right? So that's what we want to demonstrate here. So John Smith responded and said, yes, I am. Let's actually call, right? So now what I can do is I can click on this call button within HubSpot. Again, there's no training. All you have to do is call. I click on this call button. I have this interface. And as you might expect, after a few seconds, what am I doing but getting a call from Burbank, California, which is the Aloware line that's text enabled, and I can answer it. Once I answer the phone, I'm going to get the power of Aloware's dialer, which is really popular among our customers who have more contact center or just advanced needs within the dialer. So for example, I can add a conference. I can get one-to-many onto this call. So if in the middle of the call, Anush and I are talking and I want to say, oh, Chris or Jeff, I'm really interested for you guys to jump into this call, but I'm going to stay on the phone with Anush. I can do that. And so that's the adding. I can park the call. I can transfer it. So I can move it to my manager to escalate. I can do a voicemail drop. I can have notes. I can mute. I mean, all the rest of these are possible with our dialer. And although, again, we don't necessarily want to do calling first, there are circumstances that we can, and then we have this power that exists within HubSpot. Okay, so I end the call. From here, I can categorize and organize it. One of the biggest pain points we heard across our Boston time was, oh, my team members in sales or marketing, they just never record the information, right? Well, this is what that solves. So immediately you're going to say, this is the call disposition, this is how it ended, this is the contact. So maybe it's an unqualified lead, right? I'm going to mark it as unqualified, or whatever, spam. And now that's going to sync directly with the lead status in HubSpot, and I don't have to do anything else. So you're going to see that activity, and that now concludes really our section of how the contact itself is synced with the power of Aloware calling and texting. So again, I know I covered a lot, but we have one more section of this part of the HubSpot demo that we want to cover, which is workflows. So if you remember previously, we talked about automating the process of texting a large group of people within a workflow to repeat repetitive tasks and to do those repetitive tasks automatically. So let's do this. I think this is going to be pretty fun. So here I have a HubSpot workflow. Hopefully you've used HubSpot workflows in the past. With those HubSpot workflows, I can create contact enrollment settings where I can create a filter. In this case, let's say I had a webinar, and in that webinar, I had a list of registered participants that filled out a form, and in that form, they provided their phone number, right? You might see where I'm going with this. Well, that's what I have here, which is our inbound webinar 2022 in Aloware. Now, after I have this group of people, I want to go into the actions, and all the way at the bottom, I have set up the Aloware send a message. So as easy as one click there, really two clicks, the add new action and the send a text, I am now ready and set up to configure my contacts of an automated text. So in our case, one of our colleagues, Kirk, is doing a lot of the follow-up. And I'm going to do two things. I'm going to set the line that is built in Aloware, that exists in Aloware, as Kirk's personal line, so that the numbers within these texts are going from Kirk. And I'm going to set the agent assigned to Kirk. Great. So now, do you remember Anush talked about context? So how do we add context and how do we personalize the message? Well, what we can do is in this message, I can pull in the first name from HubSpot. Now, this is a simple example, but it's really this easy. I can just say, hi, first name. If in this form, the first name was filled out, which is probably true, then it's going to pull in. And then I'm going to pull in the actual message, which I copied and pasted, so I wouldn't have to type it all out, where it says, thank you so much for attending today's webinar. Remember to start your free trial and get started with business texting in HubSpot, with a link that helps you, obviously takes you to that. There's also the option of adding media, like if you want to add a GIF or whatever, but that's the basic step. So now I have my Aloware message, and now what I want to do is I want to review and publish. I also want to enroll existing contacts who meet these. You can do re-enrollment. I mean, this is all the power of Aloware, or excuse me, of HubSpot, right? So let's go ahead and turn this on. And now anyone that registered within our form should be receiving a text that is what we just said it is. So it's really that simple to create an automated workflow within HubSpot and then connect texting to that workflow so that it's ongoing. Now, anytime that somebody fills out this form, they're going to get a text with that personalized message. Hopefully that made sense. I'm going to do a little bit more to talk about our agent experience, but I do want to pause for some questions just to maybe everyone take a breather. Maybe I should even ask Anush, are there any questions that you want to answer now?
There are a lot of questions. So Nathan, I'm gonna just go over some of the questions and answer some of the pricing related ones. So somebody asked, how much does business SMS cost? So with Aloware, there are two types of messages. There are agent to consumer messages, and then there are automated messages. Agent to consumer with Aloware is actually free. So any interaction that happens between an agent and a consumer, or a consumer and an agent, is covered under the subscription. So each of your reps will get a seat on our platform, right? Between $70 to $90 per month, and they can send as many personal texts as they want, or receive as many personal texts as they want. Automated SMS, since as the example that Nathan showed, can be bulked up, and you can send, I don't know, 10 messages or 10 million messages. We do have a per text fee. This is on a pay-as-you-go basis, right? I don't want to quote a price here, but I just want to like take a little bit of a memory from inbound. We met with 2 of our significant competitors, and we realized that we are 70% cheaper. So I'm just not even gonna name a price, but it's reasonably priced. So there is another question. Is there any limitation? How many texts can we send a minute? Nathan, please go ahead.
Yeah, that's a good question. So this is throughput of messages. So it definitely depends on what's called your trust score. So without getting too much into the technical details, we have a feature called Aloware Broadcast. And Aloware Broadcast allows what Anush talked about, which is, bulk sending messages. Let's say we have a live event and it's something like HubSpot, 10,000 people, right? We got to get this message out, plus digital, 30,000 more. Well, that depends on how reasonable or how trustworthy the phone number is to the carriers, which are, the TNTs, the AT&Ts of the world. So on average, we typically like to say about 240 messages per minute is pretty high, but that's a good starting point. It could dip though below that, and it could dip far above that, depending on how reputable that phone number is. So I know that was kind of a long answer, but it does depend on how trustworthy. The other thing I want to mention though is to get a higher, quicker volume, you can do and utilize a product of ours called short codes. So short codes is actually what I showed from the Topgolf example. So the short code is just that short 6-digit or 5-digit number, right? That number can be sent in bulk to do thousands and thousands per hour, but it requires a far more lengthy vetting process because it can't just be abused really easily. So that's the answer about the limitations of how many texts per minute.
There is another question here. Can we personalize bulk texts? And I'm going to answer this one. The answer is yes, absolutely yes. As we showed with the HubSpot workflow, you can insert contact tokens, deal tokens, company tokens, anything that you want into the text message. Somebody else is asking, and this is something that I find interesting. Is there a way to integrate HubSpot chatbot with text messaging? Say a text message is sent out and someone responds, the chatbot would ask for more preliminary messages before someone starts texting back. So Nathan, if you want to go ahead and answer that with our newest release.
Is there a way to integrate HubSpot chatbot, this one? Yeah, good question. So this is a great lead in. So I think we'll have more Q&As, but we do have one final live demo that we wanted to show. So just hold on as I answer this. So I'm going to put on my agent hat, right? If I put on my agent hat, separate from putting on my manager hat, what do I care about? If I'm an SDR or I'm an individual contributor marketing agent, right? What do I care about? I care about the communications every single day. So when I wake up, all I want to do is I want to respond. And what I want to do is I want to turn this text into an engagement. This is the personalization. So what we have is our agent interface to do this. So our agent interface is built for this answer. So in HubSpot, if somebody texts you, what do you do if you're an agent? Well, probably you have to go into that contact, maybe find it in a list. You have to click on that contact, and then you have to look at the activity. You have to filter through just for the texts, and then maybe you can respond in the SMS messenger, right? Not a great experience, possible, not a great experience. Well, we built the agent interface to solve this problem, where all I care about is just responding to the texts that have come in. And so this is called Aloware Talk. Within Aloware Talk, when I look at my messages, my inbox is set up in such a way where every single text that comes in, I'm going to see in this communications tab. So, for example, I have an unread or an open inbox. I also have a pending. So pending are in transit communications. There's something happening where I've texted, I've called. You can see that these are from my personal lines, just for my contacts, right? Maybe I called them and now I have to follow up and text, something like that. But again, to answer the question, let's say somebody responds to that, where am I going to get this notification? Well, now we're going to say, you're an agent, you probably want to live in just the agent interface, which is Talk, rather than living in HubSpot. So that's the dichotomy of the admin or the manager versus the agent. The next thing that I think I can cover within this demo, and very briefly, is even the preview our power dialer. So if I'm an SDR, of course, a huge part of my job is going to be responding to these texts, and I can do that in the previous page. But what I also have the ability to do is cold call really easily. And we still do find many companies have great success with cold calling, even though it's been around forever. There's a reason that Wolf of Wall Street exists, and there's still a scene that's very famous that Leonardo DiCaprio says, "Hey, let's just talk and let's get through the business." He says it a little differently, but you get the point. So the whole idea with the power dialer is that you can automate this. You can import the lists. You can import them from HubSpot, and you can go from there. So I know that was a really lengthy answer to the first question. Is there a way to integrate, and how does this agent text message and respond? But I wanted to emphasize the point that we have an entire interface just for that question in order to make the agent experience as good as possible. So now I will hand it back to you, Anush. I think we have more questions.
So there are two kind of related questions. There are some questions here that I can just quickly answer. Does this work for all international numbers? It really depends what numbers. Like, we currently support US, Canada, UK, Australia, New Zealand, most of Europe, Mexico, and a couple others. So we can get in touch with us to see if it works for your particular country. Do you need a higher subscription, like a Sales Hub subscription, in order to utilize this? Not at this time. So an announcement came from HubSpot, I would say a couple months ago. It used to be that you need Sales Hub to integrate our Messenger and our calling solution into HubSpot, but it looks like you can do that right now without a Sales Hub subscription. And then the last question here on my feed, at the very least, is my company is hesitant to add new tech. Is there a way I can clear this with them before I go through a demo? I know they want to use text, right? So there are also a couple other questions on a similar fashion, saying that, how do I justify business texting to my executives? And similar. My answer, and I'm going to let Nathan answer this as well. My answer to that is, if you need to justify texting, we're going to send you all these slides on the recording of this conversation. The first few slides of this webinar should tell you why you need business texting. But telling is really not the same as showing. That's why we created this 10K SMS offer. So we're going to be issuing trial accounts for everybody. We're going to put 10K text messages into it. You can connect it to your HubSpot. You can start sending a bulk text. You can send personalized messages back and forth. And then if it works, which it will, then we can convert it into a paid account.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think my response to that question, how do I justify it? It's a hard question. I think I would start with a very clearly defined use case that is very small. So honestly, I go to my Topgolf situation because it was just so timely for the fact that we were having the webinar today. That was such a specific use case, right? They texted me for my appointment that I was about to schedule. Anytime that a customer is giving you their phone number within a form, they are inviting you to now engage with them. And you have to be worthy enough to say something that they care about. So that's where you can start small. You can say, well, what is the most important thing that they care about? If you're in finance and in mortgages, for example, like what do people care about? Well, if I'm about to purchase a home, I care about a low mortgage rate, right? I don't want to be spammed. I don't want to just be told, oh, I can get the lowest rate. But maybe after I fill out the form, I can just be told, hey, thank you so much for filling out the form. We would love to get on a call with you to tell you X rate is our best rate. Like get that information to them immediately that piques their interest. Now they're ready to talk with you. That's one case. And you can even start manually to do a proof of concept in order to provide evidence and validation for your executive. So I think that would be my answer, is really start small and get some really real proof so that you can go up and say, no, this definitely works.
Fantastic. So far, Nathan, thank you for your presentation. This was amazing. Again, for all of you guys who attended, this was fantastic. Nathan, any parting notes for us?
Oh, you better believe I have a parting note. So it is giveaway time. I know that you all are, I know that many people dropped, but we do have a reward for those of you that stayed on this long. So if you scan this QR code that is right here, you will get directed, I believe, to a link that'll actually sign you up for a meeting with us to validate, you are ready to go, your problems align with our solutions. We'll have a free, obviously it's a free meeting, it's a free consultation, and we'll get you set up for those 10,000 free texts that you can preload into your free trial so that it really is easy for you to start small, to define your use case. And we'll even help you with that, right? If you have questions and consultations about how you can move forward, we'll help you all through that. And we'd love to have a conversation with you and see you in the tool, right? So thank you so much for the time. I think that's all I have, Anush.
Thank you, everybody. Nathan, thank you. Fantastic. For all attendees, thank you. We wish to hear back from you soon. If you have any questions, concerns, just reach out to us directly on LinkedIn, email, chat, text us if you want, right? And we will be looking forward. Thank you, everybody. Cheers.